The church was silent except for the low hum of the organ. Rows of dark suits and black dresses filled the pews, but Williams barely saw any of them. He stood near the front, staring at his father's closed casket, trying to steady the weight pressing on his chest. Then, the heavy wooden doors creaked open. His breath caught instantly. Evelyn stepped inside, holding the hands of two small children, a boy and a girl. 5 years old, their faces bright against the somber room, their eyes wide with quiet curiosity, their features unmistakable. Williams froze. His chest tightened. His pulse stumbled. He blinked once, twice, as if his sight had betrayed him. The twins. They looked exactly like him. A whisper slipped out before he could stop it. They look like me. Evelyn felt his gaze and paused halfway down the aisle. Her spine straightened, but her eyes gave her away. She was fighting to keep herself steady, fighting to keep old emotions from flooding the moment. The boy tugged on Evelyn's sleeve and pointed, not bothering to lower his voice. "Mommy, is that the important man you told us about?" Gasps rippled softly across the pews. That single question struck harder than the funeral itself. It was the first blow, sharp and unforgettable. William swallowed hard, gripping the folded obituary until it crumpled in his hand. His eyes locked on the twins, the curve of their noses, the familiar arch of their brows, the same shade of deep brown he once saw in the mirror as a child. It didn't feel real. He took one step toward them, then another. The boy stared up at him, fearless and innocent, and asked again, louder this time, "Are you our papa?" The entire church fell still. The priest paused mid-sentence. Mourners stopped breathing. Even the organist's fingers froze above the keys. Williams nearly dropped the obituary. His father's casket stood behind him, the past he never understood, while his future stared at him with two sets of wide eyes. In one heartbeat, Williams realized the truth he ran from had grown into two little humans standing right in front of him. A wave of shock washed through the church, but all Williams could hear was the rushing of his own pulse. All he could see was the woman he once loved, and the children he didn't know he had. Have you ever faced a truth you weren't ready to accept? What would you do if your past walked into the room holding your future? If life handed you a second chance, would you run from it or fight for it? Williams and Evelyn were once inseparable. They planned a life together, but pressure, fear, and silence tore them apart. She raised the twins alone, believing he didn't want her anymore. He spent years burying himself in work, unaware that two children carried his smile and his name in their hearts. Now their worlds collide in the last place anyone expected, a funeral. Williams fights regret he can't undo. Evelyn fights fear of being hurt again. The twins simply want truth, stability, and love. This moment is the crossroads where everything begins again. Stay with me, because what happens next will shake everything they thought they knew. You'll witness the moment Williams discovers a secret his father hid for years, the moment Evelyn must decide whether forgiveness is still possible, and the moment this fractured family begins the journey toward becoming whole. Before we continue, please like this video so YouTube can share it with more viewers, and comment "Second chances matter" to support this channel. Welcome back to Mr. Graham Stories, where life's most powerful lessons come wrapped in unforgettable tales. If you're new to this family, thank you for joining us. Please hit the subscribe button because it helps us share stories like this on YouTube. The room slowly regained its breath, but Williams hadn't. His hand trembled slightly as he lowered the wrinkled obituary, eyes locked on the twins whose presence was unraveling every belief he walked into the church with. Evelyn shifted nervously, placing a steadying hand on Sean's shoulder. She wasn't sure whether to walk toward Williams or away from him. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but none of her imagined versions happened in front of an entire congregation. Williams finally forced out a whisper. "Evelyn, are they?" She swallowed hard. "This isn't the place," she said softly, her voice thin with emotion she had tried to keep buried for years. Sean and Maureen clung to her hands as if sensing the tension rising between the adults. Their small faces held more curiosity than fear. They didn't understand the weight of the air pressing down on them. Evelyn eased them into a pew, guiding them gently. Sean continued looking toward Williams with a mixture of awe and confusion, while Maureen studied him with the seriousness only a child can pull off. The service resumed, though the atmosphere felt different now. People whispered among themselves, though no one dared say anything directly. The priest continued the prayer, his voice low and calm, but Williams didn't hear a single word. All he could think was, 5 years. 5 years of birthdays. 5 years of first steps, first words, first everything. Moments he had missed. Memories he never knew he should have been there for. And now, they were sitting just a few feet away. A boy and a girl wearing the face he used to see in his own childhood photos. His throat tightened. A quiet movement caught his attention. Sean turned in the pew and gave him a tiny wave, as if offering peace. Williams blinked and gave a weak smile in return, his heart folding in on itself at the innocence of it. When the priest invited the family to stand for the final blessing, Evelyn hesitated. The twins stood with her, holding on to each other. Williams stepped closer, unsure whether to speak or stay quiet. Evelyn didn't look at him, but her voice was calm when she whispered, "Please, don't make a scene. Not here. Not today." "I won't," he replied, humbled. I didn't know." Her eyes flickered toward him for a brief second, years of hurt and longing tightly contained. Then she turned back to the altar. When the service concluded, people began filing out into the aisles. Soft sobs filled the background as relatives hugged and exchanged condolences. Williams remained motionless for a moment, watching Evelyn gather the twins' jackets. Then he stepped closer. "Evelyn, can we talk after this?" he asked quietly, desperate without sounding desperate. She paused, her fingers stilled on Maureen's zipper. Sean looked between them, confused. "Mommy, why is he sad?" he whispered. Evelyn's breath trembled. "Because today is a hard day," she said gently. "For everyone." Williams swallowed the ache building inside him. He didn't want to push her, not now, in the shadow of his father's final goodbye. But he also felt something rising inside him that he couldn't slow down, not when 2 little lives were standing in front of him. Evelyn finally nodded. "I'll stay nearby when everyone leaves. We can talk then." Those words were small, but they cracked something open inside him. Hope, fear, and regret tangled together. The twins tugged at Evelyn's hands. Maureen pointed toward the garden outside. "Can we see the flowers, Mommy?" "In a minute," she whispered, brushing their hair back gently. As mourners stepped outside beneath the gray sky, Williams lingered behind, unsure whether to follow or gather himself first. He closed his eyes briefly, exhaling a breath that felt heavier than anything he had carried before. His father was gone, but 2 children, his children, were here, alive, waiting, unaware of how much their existence had just shifted the ground beneath his feet. He opened his eyes, searching for Evelyn again through the thinning crowd. Her figure stood near the doorway, the twins huddled close under her umbrella. She glanced back once, expression unreadable, then guided the children outside. Williams felt the world urging him forward. This wasn't just a funeral anymore. It was the beginning of a truth he could no longer escape. Outside, the drizzle had softened into a quiet mist. The church garden glistened under the gray sky as mourners stepped over damp stone paths, murmuring their goodbyes. Evelyn held the umbrella steady over the twins, guiding them to a small bench beneath an old oak tree. The children huddled close, their matching sweaters dotted with faint raindrops. Williams emerged from the church moments later, his pace slow, the weight of 2 worlds pulling against each other inside him. He scanned the garden until his eyes found Evelyn. Her posture was calm, but he could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she clutched the umbrella just a little too tightly. He walked toward them. Sean spotted him first. "Mommy, he's coming," he whispered, almost excited. Evelyn exhaled, steadying herself. She wasn't afraid, but the past was rising around her like cold air. She kept her eyes on the rain-soaked grass as Williams approached. "Evelyn," he said softly, stopping a few steps away. His voice carried both hesitation and longing. She nodded once. "You said you wanted to talk." Maureen tilted her head curiously, studying Williams as if trying to understand this stranger who somehow didn't feel like a stranger at all. Williams crouched a little, lowering himself to the twins' height. He didn't reach out, didn't want to overstep, but he let his expression soften, offering them a small smile. "Hi," he said gently. Sean blinked up at him. "Are you really sad today?" he asked. Williams swallowed. "Yes," he answered honestly. "But I'm glad you're here." Maureen lifted her umbrella toy, a little plastic one she carried everywhere, and held it toward him as if offering comfort. "You can share my umbrella if you want," she said earnestly. The gesture nearly broke him. He looked up at Evelyn, emotion tightening his throat. She blinked hard, looking away for a second. "Thank you," he whispered to Maureen. "That's very kind." A quiet moment settled between them. A moment where the world grew still, where the rain seemed to hush itself, where Williams saw not just children, but the missing years he could never reclaim. He finally stood, turning to Evelyn. "I didn't know," he said quietly. "I swear to you, Evelyn, I didn't know." Her jaw tightened, but her voice stayed steady. "I believe you. But that doesn't erase everything." He nodded, accepting the truth. "No, it doesn't. But I want to understand. I want to know them. I want to know what happened, how we got here." The twins listened silently, absorbing the seriousness without understanding the details. Evelyn crossed her arms, not out of anger but out of self-protection. "Williams, there are things you never asked, and there are things I couldn't say without hurting myself more." He looked down, ashamed. "I should have fought harder to stay in your life. Maybe," she said softly. "Or maybe you were trying to protect yourself from something you didn't understand." A gust of cool wind swept across the garden, rustling the leaves above them. Somewhere behind them, the last group of mourners drifted toward their cars. Williams took a slow breath. "I want to make this right," he said, voice barely above the rain. "But I don't want to rush you or confuse them." He nodded toward the twins. "They deserve honesty and stability." Evelyn looked at him long and hard. She didn't see the CEO standing in front of her. She didn't see the man who once let fear win. She saw the boyish eyes she fell in love with years ago, eyes that were now staring at the children who carried his features. "They've only known one parent their whole lives," she said, "and I've tried to protect them from disappointment, from unanswered questions." Williams's chest tightened. "I don't want to disappoint them," he murmured. "Or you." Maureen tugged on Evelyn's hand. "Mommy, can he walk with us to the car?" Sean nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, Mama. He looks lonely." Evelyn's heart clenched. Children always tell the truth adults avoid. She turned back to Williams. "You can walk with us," she said quietly. "Just be gentle with them." "I will," he promised immediately. They moved together toward the parking lot, a small family walking in uneven steps. The twins held Evelyn's hands while occasionally glancing back at Williams with curiosity, as if trying to piece together a puzzle they didn't yet have the words for. As they neared her car, Williams slowed, hesitant to cross an invisible boundary. Evelyn noticed and paused beside the open door. "This isn't the end of the conversation," she said. "But today has been a lot." He nodded. "I understand." Maureen leaned out of her booster seat. "Bye, Mr. She squinted. "Mommy, what's his name?" Evelyn hesitated before answering, her tones soft but certain. "His name is Williams." Sean waved excitedly. "Bye, Williams." The simple sound of his name coming from their voices did something to him, something deep and unspoken. He managed a soft smile. "Bye, you two. Get home safe." Evelyn closed the door gently. Before getting in, she looked at him with a mixture of caution and gratitude. "We'll talk," she said quietly. He nodded again, unable to form more than one word. "Please." As her car pulled away, William stood alone in the mist, watching the red taillights fade into the gray afternoon. He had buried his father today, but he had just discovered the greatest part of himself, and nothing in his world would ever be the same again. The rain had thinned by the time the burial began, but the sky still held its muted gray heaviness. The cemetery felt quiet, almost too quiet, as the small crowd gathered around the open grave. Umbrellas dotted the scene like dark petals, forming a respectful circle around Roland's resting place. Williams stood near the front, shoulders drawn tight beneath his black suit jacket. The cold air brushed against his skin, but it was nothing compared to the chill settling inside him. He could hear the priest's gentle voice, but the words felt distant, muffled beneath the noise swirling in his mind. Evelyn and the twins stood several feet away, close enough that he could see them, far enough that it felt like she was protecting her heart from cracking open again. Maureen held tightly to Evelyn's fingers. Sean clutched a small flower he'd picked earlier, a bright one, almost out of place in the somber scene. He looked up at Evelyn and whispered, "Is Grandpa going to the sky now?" Evelyn knelt and brushed a curl from his forehead. "Yes, sweetheart," she murmured. "We're saying goodbye." Sean nodded with a serious expression, the kind children adopt when trying to grasp something far bigger than themselves. Williams watched the exchange, his throat tightening. He had lost his father today, a man he never fully understood, a man he often drifted too far from. And somehow, at the very same moment, he had gained a glimpse of something he didn't know. He'd been missing, a family he had once prayed for but thought fate had denied him. When the casket began lowering into the ground, a hush fell across the mourners. Williams closed his eyes for a moment, fighting the sting behind them. A lifetime of complicated feelings condensed into one painful swallow. Evelyn bowed her head respectfully, placing a gentle hand on each of the twins' backs. The sight of her standing there, strong, devoted, present, made Williams feel both admiration and regret tugging at him. As the final blessing ended, people stepped forward to offer quiet condolences. Some patted Williams on the back, others whispered short prayers, but their voices blurred together. It wasn't until he felt a smaller presence beside him that the haze lifted slightly. Maureen had slipped away from Evelyn and now stood at his side, staring down at the grave. Her small voice broke the silence. "Are you sad because you miss him?" she asked. Williams inhaled shakily and nodded. "Yes," he answered softly. "I miss him. Even the parts I didn't understand." Maureen processed that for a moment, then reached out and took his hand. Not tightly, just enough to anchor him. Evelyn hurried over, her chest rising with startled panic. "Maureen, sweetheart, you can't wander off like that," she whispered, trying to sound calm. But the tenderness between father and daughter, even in silence, was impossible to ignore. Maureen pointed at the casket. "Mommy, he's sad like you get sad sometimes." Evelyn bit her lip and gently lifted Maureen into her arms. "Come here, baby." Williams stepped back slightly, giving them space. But he couldn't deny the warmth that had just passed through him, a connection he never saw coming. The crowd began dispersing toward their cars. People murmured about the weather, about the service, about Roland's legacy. Life, as it often does, began reshaping itself around the grief. Evelyn gathered the twins' jackets, preparing to leave. Her umbrella sheltered all three of them, though the wind tugged at the edges. Sean skipped around a puddle, humming quietly to himself, completely unaware of how heavy the day had been. Williams approached slowly, cautious not to overwhelm her. "Evelyn," he said gently. She turned, her eyes softer now. Tired, emotional, guarded, but not closed. "Thank you for coming," Williams said. "I know today must have been strange for you." She nodded. "It was, but we owed him respect." He hesitated before continuing. "And thank you for letting me walk you to the car earlier. I know everything feels sudden and intense. I didn't expect—" She cut him off with a small shake of her head. "Neither did I." A long pause hung between them. Williams nodded toward the twins. "They're wonderful," he murmured. "You did so well with them." Evelyn's expression softened, pride peeking through her composure. "They've had a lot of love around them," she said. "And they deserve as much stability as possible." Williams swallowed, hearing the underlying message. "I want to be careful," he said quietly. "I don't want to cause chaos in their lives." Evelyn studied him for a long second. "Chaos happens when we hide the truth," she replied, her voice steady but gentle. "They already saw you today. They asked questions, and I won't lie to them." Williams's heart stuttered. "So, where does that leave us?" "Talking," she answered simply, slowly. "Honestly." He nodded gratefully. Sean tugged at Evelyn's sleeve, then waved up at Williams again. "Bye, Williams. See you later." Evelyn blinked, surprised. She hadn't realized her son had memorized his name so quickly. Williams smiled softly. "You will," he promised. As the twins climbed into the car, Williams stepped back, watching them settle into their seats. Evelyn started the engine but rolled the window down halfway. "We'll meet tomorrow at Cafe Maple," she said. "The kids love the pancakes there." Williams nodded. "I'll be there." She offered a brief smile, small but real, before pulling away from the cemetery. Williams watched the car disappear down the quiet road, the mist swallowing their taillights. His father was gone, but the chance to make something right, something profoundly important, had just opened in front of him. And for the first time in a long time, Williams felt a spark of purpose beneath the grief, a spark strong enough to follow. Cafe Maple was already buzzing when Evelyn arrived the next morning. The warm scent of cinnamon pancakes and roasted coffee drifted through the air, wrapping the small space in a comforting glow. Colorful murals lined the walls, and a soft jazz melody played in the background, calming, familiar, safe. Sean and Maureen ran ahead of Evelyn, excitement bubbling in every step. They loved this place. It had become their little ritual spot. Pancakes shaped like bears, chocolate chips arranged like goofy smiles. A small happiness in a world that wasn't always gentle. Evelyn guided them toward their favorite booth by the window. She adjusted their jackets, smoothing Maureen's curls and brushing crumbs off Sean's sweater left over from a snack in the car. Her heart thudded softly. Today wasn't just any day at the cafe. Today she had to face the past. Williams arrived moments later, stepping through the door in a cashmere sweater and gray slacks that seemed far more approachable than his usual boardroom attire. He paused briefly when he spotted them, that same mix of nerves and longing flickering across his face, then walked over with a gentle smile. "Good morning," he said quietly. Sean immediately scooted across the booth. "Sit here, next to me," he said, patting the empty space. Williams blinked, caught off guard. "Are you sure?" Sean nodded enthusiastically. "You're tall. Tall people get the window seat." Maureen giggled. "Mama always takes the window. But today you can have it." Evelyn inhaled deeply, pushing aside the knot of emotion rising in her throat. She nodded toward the seat. "Go ahead," she said. Williams slid in beside the twins, giving them space while remaining close enough to make them feel included. Evelyn settled across from them, folding her hands on the table. A waitress approached with her usual brightness. "Good morning. 3 chocolate chip bear pancakes?" she asked the twins. They both nodded vigorously. The waitress then turned to Williams with a warm smile. "And for you, sir?" Same," he said, "but maybe with extra syrup." Evelyn couldn't help the small smile tugging at her lips. "You never used to eat sweet breakfasts." He caught her gaze. "A lot has changed," he murmured. The kids began coloring on the menus with little crayons provided by the cafe. For a few minutes, they were absorbed in their masterpieces, Sean scribbling. Bold shapes, Maureen sketching a flower that vaguely resembled a daisy. With the twins momentarily distracted, Williams finally looked at Evelyn fully. "Thank you for meeting me," he said. She nodded. "We both knew this conversation had to happen." He took a breath. "I want to understand. Everything." Her eyes flickered downward. "Where do you want me to start?" Williams hesitated. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions at once, but the one that had kept him awake last night pressed forward first. "Why didn't I know?" he asked quietly. "Why didn't you tell me about them?" Evelyn lifted her gaze slowly. Pain flickered behind her eyes, but not anger. More like an ache she'd carried alone for too long. "You walked away," she said softly. "You didn't say goodbye. You didn't ask why I left. You didn't look for me." "I did," he whispered. "Not enough, but I did try." "I know you asked a few people," she replied, "but you didn't come back." The words landed gently but firmly. Williams leaned forward. "Evelyn, I never stopped thinking about you. I was just scared. My father's disapproval, the pressure, the timing, it all collided, and I didn't know how to fight it. And I didn't know how to explain everything without feeling like I was begging you to stay," she said. Her voice trembled, but she didn't look away. "I just found out I was pregnant," she continued quietly. "I was terrified. I didn't want to hold you to a promise out of obligation." He felt his breath shake. Hearing it out loud felt like a blow. "You should have told me." She nodded. "Maybe I should have. Maybe everything would have been different. But I was young, hurt, and honestly, I didn't think you wanted to be a father." The weight of truth settled heavily between them. Before Williams could respond, Sean tugged on his sleeve. "Papa, look, I drew you." Williams glanced down, startled by the title, but his heart warmed instantly. The drawing showed a tall stick figure with big eyes and curly hair, surprisingly accurate. "That's amazing," Williams said, smiling. "Is that me?" "Yes," Sean grinned. "And that's Maureen, and that's Mommy, and that's me. We're a team." Evelyn felt her breath catch. Children have a way of saying the deepest truths without realizing it. "Yes," Williams said softly. "We are." The pancakes arrived then, temporarily shifting the mood. The twins squealed happily as the plates were set down, bare faces with chocolate chip eyes and syrup smiles. Williams watched them eat with awe. Every tiny messy moment felt precious. After a few bites, Maureen looked up at him. "Are you staying forever?" she asked innocently. Evelyn nearly choked on her tea. "Maureen." "It's okay," Williams said gently, holding up a hand. He turned toward the little girl. "I don't want to leave you again," he said honestly. "Not ever." Sean nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because we already like you." Williams laughed, the sound soft and emotional. His eyes drifted back to Evelyn. "I want to be in their lives," he said. "Not forceful, not desperate, just sincere. I'm not asking for anything today, just a chance to earn their trust. And yours." Evelyn held his gaze. Behind her calm expression was a storm of memories, the years of raising the twins alone, the nights of exhaustion, the moments of pride, the fear of having her heart broken again. But she also saw the man sitting across from her, not the boy who ran, but someone trying to make things right. "We can start slow," she said quietly. "For them. For all of us." Williams nodded, relief washing across his features. Then Maureen looked up, syrup on her chin, and asked the question that sealed the moment. "Papa, can we sit next to you next time too?" Evelyn blinked at the word. She didn't correct her daughter. "Not this time." Williams smiled, eyes shining. "Yes," he said gently. "Next time, and the time after that." The twins cheered, and Evelyn felt something crack open inside her. Not pain, not fear, but the smallest flicker of hope. For the first time in years, the past didn't feel like a cage. It felt like a bridge. And for the first time in a long time, Williams felt like he finally had a path forward, not just for himself, but for all of them. The next morning arrived quietly, with soft sunlight spreading across the city's skyline. Williams stood in the center of his penthouse, tapping his foot nervously. The usually immaculate space looked different today, less like a corporate museum and more like a home preparing for something new. He had woken before sunrise, pacing the marble floors, rehearsing what to say, how to act, and how not to overwhelm two little hearts who barely knew him. He had already asked his butler to put away anything fragile, lower the counters, and bring out a griddle he hadn't used in years. This wasn't a business meeting. This wasn't a negotiation. This was fatherhood knocking on his door for the first time. A soft buzzing sound echoed through the penthouse. Evelyn and the twins arrived. Williams took a deep breath and opened the door. Maureen stood in front, holding a small stuffed bunny by its long ears. Sean clutched a tiny backpack and beamed up at Williams as if they'd been best friends for years. Evelyn stood behind them, her expression calm but cautious. "Good morning," she said. "Good morning." Williams replied with a warmth he didn't have to force. He stepped aside. "Come in." The twins rushed in without hesitation, their small shoes tapping excitedly against the floor. "This house is so big," Sean gasped, spinning around. "Mama, look, there's a whole wall of windows." Evelyn smiled. "Stay close and don't run." Maureen's eyes widened as she spotted a tall bookcase. "Papa, do you have stories in here?" she asked, touching the edge of a leather-bound novel. The word Papa hit him gently this time. Not with the shock of the cafe moment, but with a warmth that settled in his chest. "I do," he said softly. "A lot of them, actually." Evelyn raised an eyebrow at him, surprised by how easily the moment flowed. He met her eyes and offered a small smile, one that said, "I'm trying." Truly. The twins darted toward the kitchen area. Their shoes squeaked on the tile, and Sean tried to climb onto a stool that was too tall for him. Williams hurried over, lifting him gently. "You can sit here," he said, placing him safely. "But let me handle the hot pan, okay?" Sean nodded eagerly. "Are we making pancakes like the cafe?" "Better than the cafe," Williams said confidently. "We're making them together." He reached for the mixing bowl, and Maureen rushed over to stand on tiptoe beside him. Evelyn stepped into the kitchen area slowly, watching the scene unfold like someone afraid to blink in case the moment dissolved. "Can I pour the milk?" Maureen asked. "You sure can," Williams replied, guiding her tiny hands. The milk splashed everywhere, onto the counter, onto the recipe card, even onto Sean's sleeve. Sean burst into laughter. "Papa, Maureen made a milk ocean." Williams chuckled. "The best chefs always make a mess." Evelyn pressed a hand to her mouth, hiding a smile. She had imagined this moment countless times, Williams interacting with the children, but never like this. Never with this much gentleness. Sean took charge of cracking the eggs. He smacked one too hard against the bowl, sending pieces of shell tumbling in. Williams lifted his hands dramatically. "Whoa, we have a surprise topping." Maureen shrieked with laughter. Evelyn leaned against the counter, warmth spreading in her chest. She had forgotten how infectious children's joy could be. Williams fished out the eggshells and mixed the batter. Okay. Who wants to stir? Both twins raised their hands. No fighting, he said playfully. We'll take turns. The griddle sizzled as he poured the first pancake. The scent filled the penthouse, warm, buttery, sweet. Maureen's eyes sparkled. That looks like a cloud, she said. It does, Williams agreed. A very tasty cloud. He helped Sean flip the pancake. It flew too high, smacked onto the counter and folded in half. The twins screamed with laughter. Evelyn let out a soft chuckle. I don't think your pan is ready for acrobatics. Williams shrugged. We're experimenting. By the time breakfast was done, the kitchen looked like a battlefield. Flour on the stools, syrup on the counter, and a perfect pancake tower sitting proudly in the center of the table. They all sat together, plates filled with steaming pancakes. Sean took a giant bite and announced, Papa makes the best pancakes. Maureen nodded, her mouth full, bobbing her head enthusiastically. Evelyn blinked slowly, absorbing the scene. She had eaten at this table before, years ago, as a fiancée who believed she knew the shape of her future. Back then, Williams was quiet, controlled, always thinking about deadlines. Today, she saw a different version of him. Someone lighter, someone willing, someone who wanted this moment as much as the twins did. When breakfast ended, the twins ran toward the living room. They played with cushions, peeked behind the sofa, even pretended the rug was a lake and they were hopping across stones. William sat on the floor with them, cross-legged, letting Sean climb onto his shoulders as if he had done it 100 times before. Evelyn watched from the doorway. She had imagined fatherhood would be complicated for him, rigid, delicate, unsure. Instead, it came naturally. His laughter was real. His patience was steady. He didn't flinch when Sean tugged too hard or when Maureen climbed into his lap. It was as if something in him finally clicked into place. After a while, Williams glanced back at her. You okay? He asked softly. Yes, she said, surprising herself. I'm more than okay. He nodded, eyes gentle. Thank you for trusting me with them. She stepped closer. Trust is something we're rebuilding. But you're doing well. Sean suddenly stood tall on the couch cushion. Papa, Mama, look, I'm a superhero. Maureen jumped beside him. I'm a superhero too. Williams reached out with a steadying hand. Careful, heroes. Every good mission needs balance. Evelyn smiled. And safe landing. They both jumped into William's arms, laughing as he caught them. Evelyn stood there, watching the three of them together, her heart full in a way she hadn't expected. This wasn't the pain of the past. This was a beginning. A fragile, hopeful beginning she hadn't dared dream for. And as Williams held the twins close, he felt something rise in him. Not fear, not pressure, but purpose. Real purpose. For the first time in years, he felt like a father. And he wanted more of this. More mornings. More laughter. More moments where he was part of something real. Something worth every risk. By late afternoon, the sky outside Williams' penthouse shifted into a softer blue, and the city's hum grew fuller. The twins had worn themselves out exploring every reachable corner of the living space. Sean was sprawled on the couch, hugging a decorative pillow as if guarding treasure. Maureen had fallen asleep on William's lap, her tiny hand gripping the sleeve of his shirt. Evelyn checked the time and laughed softly. They're going to be cranky soon if they nap too long. Williams brushed a curl from Maureen's forehead. Let them rest a few more minutes, he murmured. I didn't know 5-year-olds had this much energy. You haven't seen their weekend mode yet, Evelyn teased. He looked up at her gently. Today meant something to me. Evelyn held his gaze but didn't speak. There was so much history between them, love, silence, regret, and now something new sparking quietly in the air. After a moment, she cleared her throat. Well, since today was your world, maybe tomorrow you should see mine. Williams raised an eyebrow. Your world? A block party, Evelyn replied simply. My community is having one tomorrow. Music, food, games. It's not fancy, but it's home. Williams blinked. He had stepped into her life before, years ago. Art fairs, church, picnics, street festivals, but never with this level of meaning. Never as a man who knew he had 2 children growing up inside that same world. I'll be there, he said without hesitation. Evelyn nodded, surprised but pleased. Good. Just don't wear a suit. People will think you're running for office. He chuckled. Noted. The following afternoon, Williams parked his car on a street lined with murals, porch swings, and folding chairs. Evelyn's neighborhood bustled with life, kids on scooters, elders chatting, under shade trees, and families setting up folding tables covered in dishes that smelled incredible. Music floated through the air, upbeat, soulful, familiar in a way that made the street feel alive. When Williams stepped out, several people gave him curious glances. It wasn't hostility, just interest. He stood out in his polished sneakers and carefully chosen hoodie, but he didn't mind. Today wasn't about blending in, it was about showing up. Evelyn approached him with the twins, both holding colorful balloon animals. "You made it," she said with a soft smile. "I said I would," Williams replied. "I keep my word now." That line landed gently between them. A few neighbors waved. Evelyn introduced him to a woman grilling chicken wings, a couple running, the lemonade stand, and a group of kids playing double dutch. "This is amazing," Williams murmured. "It's just home," Evelyn replied. "It's loud sometimes, chaotic sometimes, but every face here is someone who has helped me raise the kids." A little boy wearing bright blue sneakers approached Sean. "Want a race?" he asked. Sean grinned. "Yeah." Maureen tugged on Williams's hand. "Papa, can you hold my balloon? I want to play too." "Of course," he said, taking it gently. As the children ran off, Evelyn led him toward a table where Naomi sat, waving him over. "Afternoon, Williams," Naomi greeted warmly. "Glad you came." "Thank you for having me," he responded sincerely. Naomi studied him for a moment, then nodded with approval. "You look different," she said. "Lighter," he chuckled. "Blame your grandchildren." "Good," she said. "They needed you." William's chest tightened, but not with guilt, with purpose. As they walked through the block party, the twins darting between them, Williams absorbed every detail, the laughter, the music, the rhythm of community. Nobody cared about his wealth or his job title. People cared about whether he'd eat, talk, listen, participate. It was a world built on connection, not status. A group of kids ran past, chasing bubbles. Maureen came running back with sticky hands. "Papa, look, I got cotton candy." Williams knelt to wipe her face with the napkin Evelyn handed him. "You're going to be completely sugar today," he teased. Evelyn laughed. "Welcome to the weekend." They continued walking until Williams noticed a mural painted on a brick wall, tall trees, bright colors, human figures rising like branches. He recognized Evelyn's style immediately. "You painted this?" he asked. She nodded. "With some of the teens here. Art keeps them busy and gives them pride." Williams admired the wall with genuine awe. "It's beautiful. Thank you," she said softly. "This is the part of my world I wanted you to see, the part the kids grew up in." And then, without planning it, without thinking too hard, he spoke openly. "I wish I had been here." Evelyn's breath caught. Her eyes softened. "It wasn't easy," she admitted, "but we made it work." "I know," he said, turning toward her, "but I want to be part of it now." A moment of silence pulled them together, not awkward but electric in a quiet way. Later in the afternoon, music turned louder and families circled up for a neighborhood dance line. Naomi pulled Evelyn into it, laughing. Several neighbors waved for Williams to join. He hesitated. Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Come on, don't freeze now. I don't know the steps," he murmured. "Just follow me," she said, sliding her hand gently into his. Their palms touched for the first time since the funeral, a spark of familiarity and something warmer. The crowd cheered as the group danced, laughing and waving their arms. Even the twins jumped in, spinning in circles, completely carefree. Williams was awkward at first, too stiff, too rhythmic, but the more he watched Evelyn, the more he relaxed. Her movements were smooth, confident, joyful. She looked free, and in that moment, he understood her world on a deeper level. A world built from community, culture, laughter, and resilience. A world his children belonged to, and one he needed to honor. Sean tugged his sleeve. "Papa, you did it." Williams bent down and kissed the top of his son's head. "I tried." Evelyn approached with playful confidence. "Not bad for a beginner." He smiled back. "Maybe I need private lessons." "Maybe you do," she said quietly, eyes lingering for a second too long. It wasn't romance yet, but the door cracked open. Something warm, fragile, and real lived in that moment. As the sun dipped behind the houses, the block party began winding down. Families packed up dishes. Kids slowed their games. Music softened into mellow tunes. Williams walked beside Evelyn and the twins toward her apartment. "Thank you for coming," she said softly. "I know this wasn't your usual Saturday. I'm grateful you shared it with me," he replied. Evelyn watched the kids run ahead. "They like you. A lot." "I like them," he admitted. "More than I expected. They're incredible." She smiled gently. "Yeah, they are." They reached her door. The twins hugged Williams tightly. "Papa, can we see you again tomorrow?" Maureen asked. His heart melted. "Yes," he said without hesitation. Sean grabbed his leg. "Can Papa come for breakfast?" Williams laughed. "Only if your mom agrees." Evelyn crossed her arms. "We'll see." But she was smiling, truly smiling, and for the first time, Williams sensed something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years: hope. A bridge had been built today, between worlds, between hearts, between past and future, and the path across it was becoming clearer. The night after the block party lingered gently in Williams' mind long after he drove home. The laughter, the music, the warmth, none of it faded. He lay awake in his penthouse listening to the distant hum of the city, replaying the image of Evelyn's hand slipping into his during the neighborhood dance. It was a simple moment, but it lived loudly inside him. The next morning, Williams woke early, unusually energized. He made coffee, stared out at the skyline, and thought of one thing. The twins wanted breakfast. The words echoed brighter than any boardroom achievement ever had. He dressed down for the first time in years, soft faded jeans and a charcoal sweater, then packed a small bag with a surprise he had ordered late last night. He didn't even know if it would be the right decision, but something in him insisted he try. On the drive to Evelyn's apartment, he noticed himself humming, a lightness he hadn't felt in years. When Williams knocked, the door burst open almost instantly. Maureen squealed, "Papa!" Sean crashed into his leg with full force. Evelyn appeared behind them wearing a simple sweatshirt, her hair tied up, face still warm from sleep. The sight of him on her doorstep so early startled her, but in a good way. "You're early," she said, leaning on the doorframe. "Told them I'd come," Williams replied softly. The twins tugged him inside without hesitation. Evelyn stepped back, letting the moment happen naturally. Her apartment felt lived in, cozy, full of color, full of life. A few art pieces hung on the walls, each one a story waiting to be told. The smell of butter warming in the pan drifted from the kitchen. "You cooking?" Williams asked gratefully. "Trying," she replied with a shy smile. They wanted homemade breakfast. "Perfect," he said. Sean climbed onto a chair and proudly announced, "Mama makes the best pancakes in the whole world." Williams laughed. "I believe that. Better than yours, Papa," Maureen added innocently. He raised his hands dramatically. "I surrender." Evelyn turned to hide a smile. While Evelyn cooked, Williams sat with the twins at the small dining table. They bombarded him with questions. "Papa, do you have toys at your house? Can cats talk if you teach them long enough? Do rich people eat cereal or only fancy food?" Every one of their questions made Evelyn bite her lip to stop from laughing. Williams answered each one honestly. "Yes, you can have toys at my place." "No, cats can't talk. But Nimbus likes attention. And yes, cereal is absolutely allowed." The twins adored him. Not because he was wealthy, not because he was important, but because he listened. He wasn't multitasking. He wasn't checking his phone. He wasn't distracted. He was simply present. Evelyn watched him quietly while flipping a pancake. He looked different here, softer, warmer, unguarded. This wasn't the man who left her 8 years ago. This was someone transformed by 2 small humans who shared his eyes. When Evelyn served the pancakes, Williams reached into his bag. I brought something," Sean gasped. "A present?" Williams nodded slowly. "Well, tomorrow is a special day I didn't get to celebrate with you." Evelyn's eyebrows lifted. "Tomorrow, your birthday," Williams said gently, looking at each twin. "Both of you." The twins froze for a moment, then burst into giggles. "Open it. Open it," they shouted. Evelyn looked nervous but nodded. Williams handed each child a small wrapped box. Sean ripped his open immediately. Inside was a tiny model airplane, crafted from polished wood. The boy stared at it as if holding magic. "Papa, "This is beautiful," he whispered. Maureen opened hers more carefully. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, tiny stars engraved around the band. "Oh," Maureen breathed. Her eyes glowed. "It looks like Mama's art." "It reminded me of you," Williams said. "Both of you." Evelyn's breath hitched. She touched the bracelet gently, recognizing the meaning. "Thank you," she said quietly. "You didn't have to." "I did," Williams interrupted softly. Something shifted then, a warm, invisible thread pulling through the room. After breakfast, they all walked to a nearby park. Kids were everywhere. Scooters, sidewalk chalk, small colorful balls bouncing across the pavement. Sean and Maureen ran ahead with their birthday gifts, showing every child who would listen. Williams watched them with quiet pride. "They're confident," he said. "They're loved," Evelyn replied. The sun glowed through scattered clouds. Evelyn sat on a bench while Williams paced the sidewalk, helping Sean fly his wooden airplane. The boy screamed with laughter as it soared low, then dipped again. Maureen sat on the bench drawing in a small sketchbook. She handed it to Evelyn, a picture of her holding hands with both parents. Evelyn stared at it, stunned. "Did you draw this?" Maureen nodded, eyes bright. "It's us. Together." Williams returned just in time to hear that. The drawing hit him harder than he expected. He sat down beside them, breathing in the moment. Evelyn looked at him then, really looked. The man who left her once. The man who walked away afraid. The man who now tied a bracelet around their daughter's wrist and taught their son to dream. "Williams," she murmured, "you're really trying." He met her gaze. "I have to. I should have been here from the beginning. I can't change the past, but I will show up now. Every day, if you let me." Her heart tightened slowly, painfully, beautifully. "I'm still scared," she admitted. "So am I," he whispered. "But they deserve this, and you do too." Their eyes held longer than they meant them to. The twins came running back, interrupting the tension. But something unspoken remained in the air. Something tender, something familiar, something alive again. As the afternoon stretched on, Williams bought ice cream from a vendor. Chocolate smeared across the twins' cheeks as they devoured the cold treats. Evelyn laughed until she wiped tears from her eyes. Williams stared at her then, the way sunlight touched her skin, the way her laughter lifted something in him he thought was long dead. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Evelyn looked back, a gentle awareness in her eyes, a soft question, a quiet hope. The spark between them wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was simple, subtle, but real. A beginning. And for the first time since the day they broke apart, the possibility of us was no longer impossible. It was standing right there, holding ice cream cones, calling him Papa, smiling at Evelyn as if she never stopped being the woman he loved. A family forming again not through force, but through truth, time, and tenderness. And that was the spark that changed everything. The morning after the twins' early birthday celebration drifted in softly, sunlight streaking across Williams' living room floor. For the first time in a long time, the space felt lived in. A child's sneaker lay knocked over near the hallway. A napkin with Maureen's doodle sat forgotten on the dining table. One of Sean's toy airplanes rested on the couch cushion where he had fallen asleep the night before. Williams picked it up slowly, brushing a thumb along its wooden wing. The simple gift had meant more to his son than any high-end toy he could afford. That realization grounded him deeply. Fatherhood wasn't about money. It was about moments like these. Just as a warm sense of belonging settled over him, the doorbell chimed. He opened the door to a courier holding a sealed envelope. "For Mr. Williams Morgan," the man said. Williams signed and closed the door. The envelope was crisp, embossed with the gold seal of his father's attorney. He froze for a moment, his breath slowing. He knew what this was, a final set of documents from Roland's estate. But a smaller envelope inside bore a single handwritten line. "For my son." Williams's stomach tightened. His father was a man of few words, even fewer sentiments. The last handwritten note he ever received from Roland had been on his 18th birthday, a reminder to lead with conviction. But this envelope felt different. With careful fingers, Williams broke the seal. Inside was a 2-page letter, written in his father's unmistakable neat script. He began reading. "My son, if you are reading this, then my time has run its course. There is something you must know, something I should have said years ago. Williams swallowed, gripping the paper tighter. When Evelyn left, I found out she was expecting, not from you, but from a neighbor who cared enough to tell me. You were too hurt, too confused, and too proud to look for her. But I did. A shock ran through his chest. He continued reading, hands trembling slightly. I located her through a community contact. I watched from a distance as she raised the twins with strength and dignity. She never asked for help. She never complained. But I could see the weight she carried. William's eyes stung. He could picture Evelyn, pregnant, alone, exhausted, brave, and he felt a surge of regret he could barely hold inside. So I did what you could not do then. I made sure she would not struggle. Quietly, without ever revealing myself. Williams lowered the letter for a moment, stunned. He had spent years believing Evelyn left him because she wanted a life without him, but she had never been alone. And Roland, his stern, distant father, had stepped in where he himself had failed. He read on. I was wrong in many things, Williams. Wrong in how I raised you to fear vulnerability. Wrong in how I spoke of your future. I never meant to push you away from the woman you loved. A lump formed in William's throat. His father had never once admitted fault while alive. But the twins, they are your greatest blessing. My grandchildren, the only legacy that truly matters. Williams felt his knees weaken. He continued reading, slowly. If you are wise, you will choose them now. Choose Evelyn. Choose the life you once walked away from. Make a family, my son. It is the only real success a man possesses. Williams pressed the letter to his forehead, eyes shut tightly. A wave of emotion, grief, clarity, guilt, love, all collided at once. His father hadn't just known. His father hadn't just approved. He had protected Evelyn and the twins, quietly, faithfully, without ever claiming credit. It shattered something inside Williams and rebuilt something else. He folded the letter carefully, holding it like something sacred. After a long moment, he picked up his phone and called Evelyn. She answered on the second ring. Hey, she said softly, her voice still warm from yesterday's joy. You all right? I need to see you, Williams said. His voice cracked despite his efforts. Evelyn's tone shifted immediately. Come over. Are the kids okay? They're fine, he said. It's something else. Something I need to tell you. When Williams arrived, Evelyn opened the door wearing a light sweater and jeans. She looked surprised and concerned. What happened? She asked. He held up the envelope. It's from my father's attorney, he said. There's a letter inside. You should read it. Evelyn blinked. A letter from Roland Morgan? The same man who, she believed, wanted nothing to do with her. She stepped aside, letting him in. The twins were napping in their room, their soft breathing drifting down the hallway. The calmness made the moment feel even heavier. Williams handed her the letter without speaking. Evelyn sat on the couch and unfolded the pages slowly. Her eyes moved across each line. Her breath caught midway. Her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes filled. Williams, she whispered, voice breaking. He helped me. Williams nodded, sitting beside her. Evelyn reread a paragraph, tears sliding down her cheeks. I don't understand, she murmured. Why didn't he ever tell me? Why didn't anyone tell me? He wanted you to have dignity, Williams said softly. He didn't want to embarrass you. He didn't want you to feel obligated. Evelyn wiped her face. He watched over us. All this time? Yes, Williams whispered, because he knew I failed you. Her hand trembled as she lowered the letter to her lap. For a long moment, she cried quietly, not from pain but from relief. From finally understanding a truth she never could have imagined. I always thought your father didn't approve of me, she whispered. He didn't approve of me, Williams corrected gently. He approved of you from the beginning. He approved of the family we were supposed to be. Evelyn leaned back, staring at the ceiling as tears slipped down her cheeks. This changes everything, she said softly. It does, Williams agreed. She turned to him then, eyes red, voice tender. I'm glad he cared. I'm glad someone cared. Williams reached for her hand slowly, hesitantly. She didn't pull away. There's more, he said. He asked me to build the life I walked away from, to choose you, to choose them, to choose us. A silence stretched between them, deep, meaningful, loaded with possibility. Evelyn squeezed his hand. "Maybe this is our second chance," she said quietly. Williams closed his eyes for a moment, overwhelmed. "Maybe it is," he whispered back. And for the first time since they separated, they leaned into each other, not as broken lovers trying to fix the past, but as two parents discovering a truth that made forgiveness feel possible. Roland had given them one final gift, the chance to rebuild the family they never stopped dreaming about. The apartment was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt heavy with meaning. Roland's letter rested on the coffee table, its creased edges glowing softly under the lamp. Evelyn hadn't moved far from where she read it. William sat beside her, elbows on his knees, hands clasped. The truth, now out in the open, reshaped the air around them. For a while, neither spoke. Sometimes grief didn't roar, it whispered. And sometimes the truth didn't shatter, it unfolded. Finally, Evelyn broke the silence. "I spent years thinking your father wanted us apart," she said quietly, her gaze distant. "Thinking he judged me, judged us." William stared at his hands. "I spent years thinking I had disappointed him so deeply that he'd never accept the life I chose." Evelyn turned to him, her expression gentle but hurt. "And in all that time, we never actually talked about it. You never asked me why I left that morning, and I never asked why you didn't come after me." His jaw tightened. "I was ashamed," he admitted. "I let fear make choices for me. Fear of losing my father's approval, fear of not being enough for you." Evelyn's eyebrows pulled together. "You were enough. I just needed you to fight for us." Williams lifted his head to meet her eyes. "I didn't realize how much I failed you until I saw the twins, until I realized what I missed." His voice faltered. "And reading his letter, knowing he quietly took responsibility for what I should have done." Emotion caught in Evelyn's chest. She held the letter again, fingertips brushing Roland's script. "He saw me," she whispered. "When I felt invisible." "You weren't invisible," Williams murmured. "Not to me. I was just lost." Evelyn looked at him, searching his face, not for excuses, but for honesty. "And now?" she asked. Williams inhaled slowly, steadying himself. "Now I want to face every mistake I made, with you." The sincerity in his voice made her blink back fresh tears. But vulnerability didn't erase the past. It only made space to finally acknowledge it. Evelyn folded her arms tightly. "Williams, I loved you so much that it terrified me. When you went silent that night, when you didn't say anything after your father spoke to you, I felt like I wasn't enough for your world." He winced. "I should have fought harder. I should have spoken anything. Instead, I froze." "You didn't break up with me," Evelyn whispered. "You just didn't fight for us." Williams lowered his head. Shame settled heavily on his shoulders. "You're right. And you walked away because I gave you nothing to hold on to." Evelyn nodded painfully. "It wasn't because I stopped loving you. It was because I thought you didn't love me enough to choose me." The words hit him like a slow, devastating wave. "I always loved you," Williams said, voice cracking. "I never stopped. But I didn't know how to balance love with the fear of disappointing my family. I was raised to avoid vulnerability, to prioritize success. But success without you." He paused, searching for the right words, was empty. Evelyn looked down, fists tightening. "I wish you had said that back then." "I wish I had too," he whispered. Silence returned. This time it wasn't cold, it was reflective, even healing. Evelyn shifted her weight, leaning back against the couch. "We can't rebuild anything if we don't understand where we broke." Williams nodded. "I agree. And we can't rely on emotions alone," she continued. "Not with children involved, not with everything we've carried." He looked up, hopeful. "What are you thinking?" Evelyn took a deep breath. "Therapy, together. To work through everything honestly, without shame, without blame." Williams didn't hesitate. "Yes, I want that." Evelyn blinked in surprise. "Really? I'll do whatever it takes," he said firmly. "I want to understand you. I want to understand myself. I want us to build something real, not something patched together." Her heart ached at his sincerity. She realized how rare it was to hear 4 simple words from a man who once clung to silence. "I want to understand." She nodded slowly. "Okay, we'll try therapy. And if it gets difficult," he said gently, "I won't run again." Evelyn studied him. His posture was open, his eyes steady. He didn't feel like the man who shut down 8 years ago. Fatherhood had softened him. Love, even buried love, had humbled him. The apartment door creaked softly. The twins were awake. Sean padded into the room, rubbing his eyes. "Mommy, Papa, why are you sitting so quiet?" Maureen peeked from behind him. "Did somebody do something bad?" Evelyn wiped her cheeks quickly. "No, sweethearts. Mommy and Papa are just talking." Williams opened his arms without thinking. "Come here." Both twins climbed onto the couch, settling between them like puzzle pieces, fitting exactly where they belonged. The four of them sat together, a small cluster of warmth on a quiet afternoon. Maureen rested her head on Evelyn's shoulder. "Mama, why are your eyes shiny?" Evelyn kissed the top of her head softly. "Because sometimes grown-ups feel things very deeply." Sean leaned against Williams. "Papa, are you okay?" Williams nodded, placing a hand over his son's back. "I'm more than okay. I'm right where I should be." Evelyn glanced at him, a silent acknowledgement that his words weren't about location but commitment. The twins, in their innocent way, bridged a gap that years of distance had carved. After a few moments, Evelyn stood up. "Let me get them a snack." She walked into the kitchen, leaving Williams sitting with the twins. But when she glanced back, she paused. Williams wasn't looking at her. He was brushing Maureen's hair off her forehead as she leaned against him, while Sean rested peacefully under his arm. The sight hit Evelyn with unexpected force, almost like remembering a dream she once loved but thought she'd lost forever. She swallowed hard, breathing slowly. Williams looked up and caught her watching. Something passed between them, gentle, emotional, honest. Not a promise, not a confession, not a conclusion, just truth. They weren't healed yet, but for the first time they both wanted healing badly enough to reach for it. When the twins finished their snacks, Evelyn announced softly, "Tomorrow, we can meet with a counselor I know. She's kind. She listens." Williams nodded without hesitation. "Tell me the time. I'll be there." A warmth spread through Evelyn's chest, cautious but real. She wasn't falling back into love. Not yet. She was stepping into truth. And sometimes, truth was the beginning of everything. The next morning arrived with a gentle brightness, the kind that made the city feel fresh and full of hope. Parents' Day at the kindergarten had been marked on the twins' calendar for weeks, big circles drawn around the date in red crayon. But today, the event held a different meaning. For the first time, the twins would walk into school with both of their parents. Evelyn helped Maureen tie the ribbon on her dress while Sean hopped around the living room excitedly, clutching the wooden airplane Williams gave him. "Papa's coming, right?" he asked for the third time that morning. "Yes, sweetheart," Evelyn replied, smoothing the collar of his shirt. "He'll meet us there." Sean grinned so wide, his cheeks bunched up. Evelyn felt her heart soften. She wasn't used to this, sharing moments like this with someone else again. There was a quiet shift happening, gentle but undeniable. A knock sounded at the door. Sean sprinted. "Papa." Evelyn opened the door to find William standing there, slightly out of breath, holding a small bouquet of colorful daisies. He looked both proud and nervous, as if stepping into a role he wasn't sure he was worthy of yet, but was determined to grow into. "These are for the twins, teacher," he said, a self-conscious smile tugging his lips. "I didn't want to show up empty-handed." Evelyn blinked in surprise. "Thoughtful, simple, real. Thank you," she said softly. "She'll appreciate that." The twins each grabbed one of William's hands. "Let's go. We're going to be late." Their excitement was contagious. The four of them walked down the hall and out into the morning light together. A sight Evelyn had dreamed about privately for years, but never thought she'd see. The kindergarten buzzed with cheerful noise, children running around, parents chatting, teachers straightening displays on the walls. Construction paper butterflies, alphabet posters, and finger-painted rainbows covered the hallway in bright color. As the family stepped into the building, heads turned. Parents who had seen Evelyn alone for years glanced curiously at the man walking beside her. Some smiled politely. Others whispered behind warm hands. But the twins didn't notice any of that. "Papa, look." Maureen tugged on Williams's sleeve, pointing at a bulletin board covered with photos from last month's art day. "That's my picture." Williams crouched down to eye level. "You made that? It's incredible." She glowed at the praise. Sean pointed at a drawing of a family, a woman with curly hair, a boy and girl, and a tall man beside them. Above it, the teacher had written, "Families come in all shapes." Sean whispered, I drew that. Before Papa came. Something in William's chest tightened, not with pain, but with meaning. He placed a gentle hand on Sean's shoulder. Thank you for putting me there, he whispered. Sean smiled proudly. Evelyn watched this exchange unfold. Every gentle word, every intentional gesture, it was all sinking in. Slowly, Williams was no longer the man who ran from responsibility. He was a father now. Fully, actively, earnestly. Miss Lawrence, the twins' teacher, brightened when she saw them enter. Good morning, Evelyn. Good morning, Sean and Maureen. Then she noticed Williams and her smile widened. You must be their father. Williams handed her the bouquet. Thank you for having us today. I know they've been looking forward to this. Ms. Lawrence laughed. They told everyone you were coming. I think half the class believes you're a superhero. Evelyn let out a small laugh, heat rising in her cheeks. Williams scratched the back of his neck, embarrassed. I hope I don't disappoint them then. The children all gathered on the carpet for morning introductions. Parents sat in small chairs around the room, some snapping pictures, others waving to their children. When it was Sean and Maureen's turn, they stood proudly in front of the class. Maureen cleared her throat dramatically. This is my mommy, she announced, pointing at Evelyn with both hands. She teaches me how to draw beautiful things. Evelyn smiled, heart warm. Then Sean grabbed Williams's hand and pulled him forward. And this is our papa. The room fell quiet for a breath, just one breath. Every adult turned. Every child stared with wide eyes. Even the teacher paused, the daisies still in her hand. Williams froze, not from fear, but from overwhelming emotion. The title felt both foreign and deeply familiar. His stomach tightened. His throat closed. Maureen finished proudly. He reads us stories and makes us laugh. Sean added, and he came today because he loves us. Those words hit him harder than any corporate milestone ever had. Without thinking, Williams knelt and wrapped both kids into his arms. His voice was thick but steady. I love you both more than you know. Some parents pressed hands to their hearts. Miss Lawrence blinked back warmth. Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. Not because the moment was dramatic, but because it was real. The man she once loved, the man she once feared was lost forever, was standing here, kneeling. Here, claiming their children publicly without hesitation, without shame, without fear. The years she spent alone didn't disappear, but they softened. They began to make sense. The class shifted into Parents' Day activities, building little crafts, painting bookmarks, writing family wishes on colorful notes. Evelyn helped Maureen paint flowers on her bookmark, giving soft encouragement. Williams sat beside Sean at a small round table. The boy concentrated intensely on writing his wish. I wish Papa stays for all the days. Williams read it silently. A single breath shook in his chest. He cleared his throat and carefully placed a hand on Sean's back. I will, he whispered. Sean smiled without looking up. Good. I told Mama that too. Across the room, Evelyn overheard the comment and froze mid-brushstroke. Her heart tightened, aching but hopeful. Miss Lawrence approached them later and spoke quietly to Evelyn. They're glowing today. Children feel everything. Whatever's changing, it's changing them too. Evelyn nodded slowly. She knew exactly what the teacher meant. At the end of the event, the class gathered in a circle. They shared what they loved most about their families. When it was Maureen's turn, she stood tall. I love Mommy because she always knows when I'm sad, she said. And I love Papa because he came back. A hush fell. Williams felt a sharp breath leave his body. Evelyn's hand instinctively reached for hers, resting lightly on her daughter's back. Miss Lawrence smiled gently. That's beautiful, Maureen. But Maureen wasn't finished. She turned to Williams. Are you going to stay now? Every head turned again. Sean stared up at him, hopeful. Williams swallowed hard and touched her cheek. Yes, he said softly. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere again. Evelyn exhaled deeply, a breath she didn't realize she had been holding for years. And in that classroom, surrounded by tiny backpacks and finger-painted art, a truth crystallized. Williams wasn't trying to be a father. He was one. Not because biology said so, not because Roland's letter said so, but because his children believed it, and he finally believed it too. As they walked outside, sunlight warmed the sidewalk. The twins skipped ahead, intertwining their little fingers, giggling about the snacks the teacher handed out. Evelyn and Williams walked side by side in silence. Finally, Evelyn spoke. "You were incredible today." Williams shook his head softly. "They're incredible. I'm just trying to deserve them." Evelyn stopped walking, turning fully toward him. "You're doing more than trying," she said gently. "You're becoming their father, and they see it. And so do I." His breath caught at her words, not from fear, but from relief. "Thank you," he said quietly. They continued walking until they reached her building. As the twins ran up the steps, Evelyn turned to him again. "Williams, whatever happens between us in the future, I want you to know something." He waited. "You're changing, and I'm proud of you." The words struck him with unexpected force. A small, grateful smile curved his lips. "I'm trying to earn our second chance." Evelyn didn't answer immediately, but her eyes softened. Not with promises, not with pressure, with possibility, the kind that made the future feel real again. The city buzzed that evening, a warm hum rising from the sidewalks as dusk settled into the skyline. Downtown lights flickered to life, neon signs, street lamps, and gallery windows glowing with soft gold. Evelyn stood outside the entrance of the Armitage Gallery, hands lightly clasped. In front of her, breathing slowly through the nervous rush building in her chest. Her art exhibition. Her first real opportunity to share years of quiet work, late nights, and resilience with the world. Through the window she could see her canvases, vivid abstractions of motherhood. Hope, healing, solitude, and love, arranged carefully along the walls. Each piece told parts of her story. Parts she never thought she'd share publicly. Tonight, she would. The twins were with Maureen's godmother for the evening, excited to hear how famous Mommy becomes. Evelyn smiled at the memory. She smoothed the front of her dress, a deep emerald color that complemented her skin beautifully. Behind her, footsteps approached. She turned. Williams stood there, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit that made him look grounded, confident, and proud. In his hands he held a small white box tied with a slender ribbon. "You look incredible," he said softly. Evelyn felt warmth rise into her cheeks. "Thank you." "I'm nervous." "That's normal," he replied, stepping closer. "It means you care." She exhaled a shaky laugh. "I do. This show is something I've dreamed about." "I know," he said gently, "and I'm honored to be here with you." His words settled over her like a gentle hand on her shoulder, steady, encouraging, real. She glanced at the box. "What's that?" He hesitated. Not dramatically, but thoughtfully. "A small gift for tonight. Something to remind you of how far you've come." Evelyn opened the box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet, a slender band engraved with a simple phrase, "Seen." Her breath hitched softly. Williams explained quietly, "I spent so many years not understanding how much you needed to feel seen. I didn't see you clearly before, but I do now. And this is a reminder, for both of us, that your voice, your art, your strength, they matter." Evelyn blinked rapidly, fighting emotion. "Williams, you don't have to say anything," he added gently. "Just know I'm proud of you." For a brief moment they simply held each other's gaze, something warm tightening. Between them, something not rushed, not forced, but undeniably returning. A gallery attendant came out. "Miss Lane, we're ready whenever you are." Evelyn nodded and slipped the bracelet onto her wrist. It fit perfectly. "Ready?" Williams asked. She inhaled deeply. "Yes, let's go." The soft buzz of conversation filled the room. Guests in elegant attire admired the artwork, moving slowly from piece to piece. Soft jazz played in the background. It was everything a gallery opening should be, warm, attentive, alive. Evelyn stayed near the entrance to greet new arrivals. William stood beside her, not overshadowing her moment, but supporting her, visible, enough to be reassuring, quiet enough not to take attention away from her spotlight. As people walked in, they nodded respectfully, some already recognizing Evelyn's work from the promotional posters. A woman approached with a smile. "You're Evelyn Lane, right? These pieces are stunning. They feel so personal." "Thank you," Evelyn replied with a small but confident smile. "They are." More guests came. A couple admired a piece featuring two children beneath a sweeping arch of color. "This one feels like hope," the man said. Evelyn nodded. "It is hope. Painted during a time when I felt a lot of change happening in my life." Williams glanced at her subtly. He knew exactly when she had painted that one, around the time she gave birth to the twins, alone, yet stronger than she realized. Another guest, a journalist for a local arts column, stepped forward. "Your technique is bold, but sensitive. What inspired the collection?" Evelyn took a slow breath. "Life, my children, my past, and learning what it means to heal and rebuild." The journalist smiled. "Beautifully said." Williams felt something expand in his chest, the same feeling he'd experienced at Parents' Day, but deeper now. Seeing her own identity celebrated, her talent recognized, it moved him profoundly. She wasn't just the mother of his children. She wasn't just the woman he once loved. She was a force of her own. He felt lucky just to witness her shine. Midway through the evening, the gallery's director approached Evelyn and asked if she would share a few words. The guests gathered in a loose circle, glasses of sparkling water and light wine in hand. The lights dimmed slightly over the crowd, spotlighting Evelyn gently. Her hands trembled slightly, but she steadied them. "Thank you all for being here," she began. "This show means more to me than I can say. Every painting here represents a chapter of my life, moments of joy, pain, growth, and rediscovery." Guests nodded, drawn in. "And," she continued, glancing at Williams, "I want to acknowledge someone who has been an important part of my journey lately." Williams straightened, breath caught. "Williams," she said softly, voice steady but emotional, "thank you for supporting me, for showing up, for believing in what I create, and for reminding me that my story is worth telling." A quiet murmur rippled through the crowd, not gossip, but warmth. Williams felt something shift inside him. Not the sharp guilt of the past and not the confusion of rediscovery. This was tenderness. Something steady, something hopeful. He nodded at her, unable to speak without his voice breaking. The applause rose gently, filling the gallery with sincerity. Evelyn stepped back, letting the moment settle. The twins weren't there to see it, but for the first time, Evelyn felt like she was stepping into her own light and into something new with Williams. Later, as the evening thinned and guests began leaving, Williams and Evelyn found themselves standing alone near a painting of deep blues and warm tones, her favorite piece. "You did beautifully up there," Williams said. "Your voice, your confidence, it was powerful." Evelyn smiled quietly. It felt good. "Sharing this part of me, you deserve to be celebrated," he replied. She turned toward him, the gallery lights softening the air around them. "I meant what I said earlier. You being here tonight meant a lot." His eyes softened. "I'll always be here now, not halfway, not in silence, fully." The honesty between them felt different now, not painful, not fragile, foundational, a base they could build on. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment. Not the man she left, not the man she feared losing, but the man standing right in front of her, changed and still changing. "Thank you, Williams," she whispered. He brushed his thumb gently along the new bracelet at her wrist, a gesture not claiming her but appreciating her. "You earned tonight," he said. "I'm just grateful I could witness it." Her chest warmed. "Then maybe," she said softly, "this is the beginning of something new. Or the beginning of what we should have had," he said quietly. Evelyn exhaled, a tremor of emotion running through her. Not a promise, not a leap, but a step, one they both felt ready to take. The gallery lights dimmed as the final guests departed, and for the first time in years, they walked out together, not as broken pieces, trying to fit, but as two people beginning to rebuild something real. The morning sun filtered gently through Evelyn's curtains as she zipped the twins' small duffel bags. The excitement buzzing within the apartment was unmistakable. Sean and Maureen had spent the entire week talking about the big house in the woods, a country estate that Williams rented for the weekend. It wasn't flashy or excessive. In fact, Williams had insisted on something simple, peaceful, and untouched by city demands. A place where the four of them could breathe. "Are we leaving now?" Sean asked for the third time, bouncing on the couch while still wearing only one sock. "Almost," Evelyn replied with a laugh. "Put on your other sock." Maureen twirled near the hallway mirror, admiring the butterfly hair clips Evelyn placed in her curls. "Mama, do you think Papa will like my clips?" "I think he'll love them," Evelyn said warmly. A knock at the door. The twins sprinted before Evelyn even reached it. "Papa," they shouted in unison as William stepped inside, carrying a small cooler and smiling. Today he wasn't dressed in a sharp suit or business attire, just a navy sweatshirt, dark jeans, and a relaxed ease that softened his features. "Good morning," he said, grinning as the twins wrapped themselves around his legs. Evelyn's heart warmed at the sight. "You're early." "I couldn't wait," he admitted, "and I wanted to beat the traffic." She grabbed the last bag and locked the apartment behind her. As they walked down the hallway together, the twins holding both their hands, she felt something subtle shift in her chest, a sense of ease she hadn't felt in years. The ride toward the estate was quiet at first, soft music playing as skyscrapers gave way to rolling hills and tall trees. The twins dozed off halfway through the trip, leaning on each other in the back seat. Evelyn watched them with a fond smile before glancing at Williams. "You seem calm today," she said. "I feel calm," he confessed. "Being with you three feels like the one place nothing is expected of me except honesty." She looked out the window for a moment, taking in that statement. He wasn't performing. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He was simply being himself, transparent in a way the old Williams never allowed. "That's a good thing," she said softly. "It's new," he added with a small laugh. "But good." They fell into a comfortable silence, the kind that didn't feel awkward but rather familiar, like they were rediscovering a rhythm they once had. The driveway curved through towering trees before opening into a wide clearing where a rustic but elegant home sat. A wraparound porch lined the front, and wildflowers dotted the edges of the property. The twins gasped. "It looks like a storybook house," Maureen cried. "It's huge," Sean yelled with equal enthusiasm. Evelyn laughed as they ran ahead, exploring the property as though it were an enchanted forest. Williams watched her reaction instead of the house. "Do you like it?" She nodded slowly. "It's beautiful, peaceful. That was the goal," he said. "Somewhere we could all slow down." Inside, the home smelled like cedar and fresh linens. Large windows invited sunlight into every room. The kitchen was warm, with a spacious wooden table that looked perfect for family meals. Sean tugged on Williams's sleeve. "Papa, can we explore the backyard?" "Absolutely," Williams replied. "Let's put your bags down first." The twins dashed upstairs, arguing excitedly over which room they wanted. Evelyn turned to Williams, smiling. "They're thrilled." He returned the smile, softer. "Their happiness matters more to me than anything else right now." Evelyn felt that line settle in her chest, not just as a father's statement, but something more emotional, more present. Behind the estate was a serene lake bordered by tall trees and a narrow dock. The water shimmered beneath the afternoon sun. Williams carried a picnic basket, while Evelyn held a blanket, and the twins skipped ahead, swinging their hands. They found a perfect spot near the water. Williams laid out sandwiches, fruit, and cookies. The twins immediately dug in with enthusiastic smiles. "This is like vacation," Maureen exclaimed, crumbs decorating her cheeks. "It's better than vacation," Sean corrected, mouth full. "Papa is here." The comment shook Evelyn quietly. She glanced toward Williams, who held Sean's words gently like a fragile gift. After they ate, the twins collected smooth stones and tiny sticks near the shore. Evelyn sat on the blanket, legs folded beneath her, watching them with quiet joy. Williams sat beside her. "They're happy," he murmured. "They are," she replied. "And you?" he asked carefully. Evelyn turned toward him. His voice wasn't demanding reassurance. It was genuine curiosity. "I'm better than I've been in a long time," she admitted. "These moments, they feel good." Williams looked down at his hands. "I want to create a life where you don't have to choose between holding everything together and being happy." Evelyn's heart fluttered, not with romantic impulse, but with something deeper, trust. "You're doing a good job," she said softly. He looked at her then, eyes reflecting the lake's calm surface. "It's because I'm finally learning how to show up the right way." She didn't respond right away. She didn't need to. Her expression said enough. As the sun slipped behind the trees, Williams built a small fire in the stone pit behind the house. The twins roasted marshmallows, laughing as their treats melted onto the sticks. Evelyn sat wrapped in a blanket, cheeks warmed by the fire. Williams sat close, not touching, but near enough for her to feel his presence. "Tell us a story, Mama," the twins demanded. Evelyn smiled. "About what?" "About when you were little," Maureen said. "Or about how you and Papa met," Sean added. Both adults inhaled sharply. Williams gave a small laugh. "That one might need a little editing." Evelyn nudged him gently. "You're not wrong." So instead, she told the twins a simple, light-hearted story about her childhood, running through sprinklers. In the summer, drawing on the sidewalk with chalk, laughing with neighbors until the streetlights came on. The twins listened wide-eyed, sipping warm cocoa. Williams listened too, not because he didn't know her story, but because he loved hearing the softness in her voice. When the twins grew sleepy, Evelyn guided them inside, tucked them into their beds, and returned quietly to the patio where Williams was tending the last embers of the fire. She approached slowly. "They're out. The fresh air probably helped," Williams said, looking up at her. His face was lit softly by the fire, and for a moment, Evelyn saw the young man she once fell for, the sincerity, the gentleness, the desire to be better. She sat beside him, folding her hands around the warm mug he left waiting for her. "Thank you for today," she said. He nodded. "I should be thanking you. This weekend was your suggestion." "True," she said lightly. "But you made it meaningful." There was a quiet beat of silence, not tense, but intimate. "You've changed," Evelyn said quietly. He didn't shy away from it. "I had to." "No," she corrected softly. "You chose to." Williams looked at her then, fully, openly. "For years I was afraid of emotion. I thought vulnerability was weakness. I shut down because I didn't trust myself to communicate what I felt. But now, I want to show you a version of me that loves with intention, that listens, that learns." His voice wasn't polished. It wasn't rehearsed. It was honest. Evelyn's chest tightened, not with fear, but with warmth. "I see that, and it matters more than you know." He swallowed lightly. "I want to make things right." "You are," she whispered. Later, as the fire faded, the sky opened into a blanket of stars stretching endlessly above them. The night was quiet except for the soft rustle of trees and the faint chirping of crickets. Williams leaned back on his elbows. "I forgot how bright stars can be when you're away from the city." Evelyn lay back on the blanket beside him. "It feels peaceful." He glanced at her. "I wish I'd learned sooner how to appreciate moments like this." "You're appreciating them now," she replied. "That's what matters." A gentle breeze brushed over them. Williams took a slow breath. "Evelyn," he said, voice careful, "do you think we could find our way back to each other? Not fast, not forced, but naturally?" She didn't answer immediately. She looked at the sky, watching constellations stretch across the darkness. "Maybe," she said finally. "I'm not closing the door. I just want to keep taking steps. Like today." Williams nodded. "Steps. I can do steps." She smiled softly. "Good." He looked at her again, really looked. "I want to rebuild this with patience, with honesty. And with the twins in mind," she added. "Always," he said firmly. Their eyes held, not as people begging for forgiveness, but as people discovering the possibility of something new. Evelyn shifted slightly closer, the corner of the blanket brushing his arm. Williams's pulse quickened, but he didn't move, or assume, or rush. He simply accepted the moment for what it was. A beginning. They stayed like that for a long time, two figures beneath a sky full of stars, letting silence speak for them. Not falling back into love, but rising into it again. Slowly, deliberately, beautifully. Dawn crept quietly across the country estate, washing the walls in pale gold. The house was still, wrapped in early morning stillness. Evelyn stirred awake to the faint rustle of trees outside and the steady rhythm of the twins breathing down the hall. She quietly stepped out of bed, her feet brushing the soft rug, and wrapped herself in a cardigan. Williams had risen earlier. She could sense it. There was something in the air today, a gentle anticipation she couldn't quite name. She walked down the hallway, passing the twins' room. Sean was sprawled sideways across his bed, one sock missing. Maureen slept curled like a kitten, clutching her butterfly clip as if it were treasure. Evelyn smiled tenderly before continuing downstairs. The kitchen smelled faintly of vanilla. William stood at the counter, pouring warm batter onto a skillet, still in his sweatshirt from the night before. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Morning," he said softly. His voice carried something different today, not nerves, but intention. "Morning," she replied, drawing closer. The sunlight filtering through the large window framed him in a soft glow. He flipped a pancake, then motioned toward the back doors. "After breakfast, there's something I'd like to show you." Evelyn raised a brow. "That sounds mysterious." He chuckled lightly. "It's not. Just something important." Before Evelyn could ask, Sean bounded down the stairs, hair wildly tousled. Pancakes. Papa, save me the biggest one. Maureen followed, clutching her stuffed bear. I want syrup, the big syrup. Evelyn burst out laughing. Williams ladled another round of batter with exaggerated seriousness. The morning unfolded in warmth and ordinary joy. Pancakes stacked high, syrup drips everywhere, Sean proudly insisting. He could flip a pancake, he couldn't, and Maureen carefully decorating her plate with blueberries. Williams helped tie the twins' napkins, brushed a smear of syrup off Evelyn's cheek, and laughed when she teased him for burning a pancake. It was the kind of morning families remembered. A moment that felt like home. After breakfast, Williams asked the twins to stay inside and work on a drawing project. I need to borrow your mama for a little bit, he told them gently. Can we watch cartoons? Sean asked. Yes, Evelyn answered quickly, already knowing they'd only agree to let her leave if cartoons were involved. With the kids settled, Williams gestured toward the back door of the estate. Walk with me? Evelyn nodded. The air outside was cool but pleasant. Dew clung to the grass, sparkling beneath the gentle morning light. Williams led her through the backyard, past the small bonfire pit from the night before, and toward the orchard behind the estate. Apple trees lined the path, their branches arching overhead like a natural canopy. Fallen leaves crunched under their shoes. Williams, she said quietly, you're being oddly calm today. He shot her a nervous smile. Am the first? Yes, she replied with lifted brows. Is something wrong? No, he said, shaking his head slowly. Nothing is wrong. Everything is right, actually. Evelyn looked at him closely. There was sincerity in his eyes, deep, steady, almost transformative. When they reached the center of the orchard, she saw it, a blanket spread beneath an old oak tree, candles, placed safely in glass holders around it, and a small wooden box resting on top of the blanket. Evelyn stopped walking. Williams, she whispered. He turned toward her fully. I didn't bring you out here to overwhelm you, he began, voice steady. I just needed a quiet place where I could speak from where I've failed and where I hope to grow. He paused, letting the weight of the moments settle. When I met you, Evelyn, I was drawn to your light. You made the world make sense to me in ways I couldn't explain, but I let fear speak louder than love. I let silence push you away. A breath trembled in Evelyn's chest. Williams continued, stepping closer. Seeing Sean and Maureen, watching you raise them with strength and love, realizing how much life I missed because I couldn't face my own emotions. Evelyn, it changed me. She felt her eyes sting. He reached for her hand. I can't rewrite the past, but I want to build the future, one where you are never alone, one where the twins never question whether they belong, one where I show up fully and without hesitation. He released her hand gently and reached down for the wooden box. When he opened it, Evelyn gasped softly. Inside were 2 simple silver bands, each engraved with delicate oak leaves, symbols of roots, growth, and endurance. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. Evelyn, Williams said, lowering himself to one knee, not in grandiosity, but in humility, reverence, and hope. Will you marry me? Not because of obligation, not because of the twins, but because you are the person I choose to love for the rest of my life. Her breath caught. Because you are my peace, my partner, my home, and I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never carry anything alone again. He lifted the rings closer. Will you say yes, to me, to us, to this family we're rebuilding together? The orchard held its breath. Evelyn covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Emotion surged, love, disbelief, relief, healing. Yes, she whispered. Williams blinked. Yes? Yes, Williams, she repeated, louder, tears falling freely now. Yes. 1,000 times yes. His face broke into the softest, realest smile she had seen in years. He slipped the ring onto her finger. She slid the second ring onto his. Then he stood, pulled her gently into his arms and held her as she cried into his shoulder. I love you, she breathed. He closed his eyes, forehead touching hers. I love you, Evelyn. A sudden pair of footsteps pounded through the orchard. Papa, Mama, where are you? 2 small gasps echoed. Sean froze first, then Maureen. Mama's wearing a ring. Maureen squealed. Papa, did you marry Mama? Sean asked, eyes huge. Williams laughed softly, kneeling to their level. I asked her to marry me, he explained, and she said yes. The twins screamed in joy, tackling them with hugs. Sean clung to Williams. Maureen wrapped herself around Evelyn's waist. "We're a real family now." Maureen cheered. "We were always a family," Evelyn said gently. "But now we're choosing it forever." Williams pulled all three of them into his arms. And for the first time in years, everything felt whole. Not perfect, not fixed in an instant, but whole. A family finally standing on the same ground, facing forward together. A love repaired not by force, but by truth, growth, and courage. As the four of them walked back toward the house, Sean holding Evelyn's hand, Maureen holding Williams, the morning sunlight broke through the trees, casting a warm glow over what was now the beginning of their new life. Spring arrived gently that year, as if the world itself understood, the kind of new beginning blossoming in Williams and Evelyn's lives. Morning after morning, the estate woke with warm sunlight pushing through pale curtains and tiny petals drifting from nearby trees like soft confetti. Everything about that season felt symbolic, the twins growing more confident each day, Naomi smiling, more often than she had in years, and the couple themselves becoming something steady and undeniable. Their wedding day came on the first truly warm Saturday of April. Evelyn stood before her mirror in the estate's guest room, hands lightly trembling as she adjusted the delicate fold of her dress. It wasn't the extravagant gown she once dreamed of in her 20s. Instead, this was soft, simple, and meaningful. Ivory fabric that draped effortlessly over her shoulders, hugging her figure just enough to feel elegant without discomfort. The neckline framed her collarbones and the small silver necklace Naomi had gifted her years ago. Her curls were pinned up loosely, with a few strands falling around her cheeks. She wanted to look like herself, not a version shaped by expectation. Naomi stood behind her, fingertips lightly brushing her daughter's shoulders. "You look breathtaking," she whispered, eyes warm with nostalgia. Evelyn swallowed the rising emotion. "Mama, don't start," she murmured with a shaky laugh. "If you cry, I'm going to cry, and Sean and Maureen already smeared my mascara once." Naomi laughed softly, patting her cheek. "I can't help it, baby. It's not every day I get to watch my daughter marry the man she always loved. It's a blessing. And trust me, blessings deserve tears." Evelyn turned and hugged her mother tight. Naomi's embrace felt like history. All the nights she stayed up helping with the twins, all the moments of exhaustion. When she reminded Evelyn she wasn't alone, all the quiet prayers she whispered over her sleeping grandchildren. "You raised me to stand on my own," Evelyn whispered, "but you also raised me to know love when it shows up." She pulled back, eyes glistening. "Thank you for standing by me." "Always," Naomi kissed her forehead. "I stand by you because you always stand by others." Meanwhile, outside in the garden, Williams paced in his tailored navy suit, smoothing the lapels over and over. He wasn't nervous about the choice. He'd never been more certain of anything. But weddings had a way of making time feel heavier, as if every step carried memory and meaning. He stopped pacing long enough to breathe in the scent of fresh blossoms. The garden was set beautifully, white folding chairs arranged in 2 neat rows, a wooden arch wrapped with blooming branches, and small lanterns lining the aisle. Spring sunlight glowed against the petals sprinkled across the walkway. From inside the living room came a loud crash, the unmistakable sound of something expensive falling over. "Sean! Maureen!" A voice scolded. Williams closed his eyes, already smiling. A moment later, the twins burst out through the patio doors, dressed in their miniature outfits. Sean's bow tie was slightly crooked, and Maureen's small white dress fluttered as she ran. Both were breathless, cheeks rosy from excitement. "Papa," Maureen shouted. "We practiced the ring part," Sean added proudly, holding up the tiny pillow where 2 oak-engraved rings rested on satin loops. Williams crouched down, smoothing Sean's bow tie and brushing a stray curl behind Maureen's ear. "You two ready to help us today?" "Yes," they shouted in unison. His heart expanded in a way that surprised him every time. Months ago, he had stood in a cafe realizing he was a father. Now, he stood in a garden preparing to become a husband too. Life had turned, reshaped, and healed him. Carla, one of the few colleagues Williams had invited, approached from across the lawn, adjusting her sunglasses. "You clean up well," she joked lightly. Williams rolled his eyes. "Carla, don't make me regret inviting you." Carla smirked. "Too late." Then her voice softened. "Seriously, congratulations. You deserve this." He nodded with gratitude. "Thank you." At the far end of the garden, soft instrumental music began to play. Williams inhaled slowly, steadying himself. Naomi emerged first, walking gracefully down the aisle to take her place in the front row. She gave him a reassuring nod, a blessing without words. Then, Sean and Maureen stepped out onto the path. The crowd melted. They walked with exaggerated concentration, trying not to spill the petals inside the tiny baskets. They insisted on using even though they weren't acting as traditional flower children. Sean carefully guarded the rings, clutching the pillow with both hands. Maureen sprinkled petals with dramatic flair, sometimes tossing them into the air like she was celebrating early. Whispers of admiration rippled through the guests. But when the music shifted, when the first warm notes of a piano melody played, everything stilled. Evelyn appeared at the entrance of the garden, sunlight catching her dress like it had been waiting just for her. She stepped forward slowly, Naomi by her side, her eyes fixed on Williams and, her smile small but genuine, the kind of smile that didn't need to be forced. Williams felt the air leave his lungs. Every emotion he had buried, every regret, every hope, they all rose, meeting this moment. He had imagined this once, years ago when they were younger and fearless. He had imagined what it would be like to see her walking toward him. But this, after all the heartbreak, growth, and reconciliation, felt deeper, fuller, real. Naomi placed Evelyn's hand into his. "Take care of each other," she whispered, her voice firm with love. "We will," Williams answered, not as a promise, but as a truth. The officiant, a kind older woman from the local community center, smiled warmly. "We gather today," she began, "not just to witness a union, but to honor a love that survived time, silence, and distance." Evelyn squeezed Williams' hand tightly. As they exchanged vows, Williams lifted hers from a small folded card, though the edges trembled slightly between his fingers. "Evelyn, you have been my peace when I had none, my courage when I doubted myself. You taught me to love the parts of life I once ignored, and you gave me the two greatest gifts I could ever receive. I promise to show up, every day, with my whole heart, for you and for our children." A tear slipped down Evelyn's cheek. She unfolded her own vows, voice soft but unwavering. "Williams, you broke my heart once, but you spent every day since choosing to mend it not with words but with action. I promise to stand beside you, to forgive, when forgiveness is needed, and to love you not for perfection, but for the sincerity you bring into this family. You are my partner, my friend, my future." The twins sniffled loudly in the front row. "Are you crying?" Sean whispered to Maureen. "No," she insisted, wiping her cheek. "My eyes are just sweating." Laughter rolled through the guests. Then came the rings. Sean stepped forward with exaggerated importance, holding out the pillow. Williams took one ring. Evelyn took the other. "With these rings," the officiant said, "you join your lives as one family." They slid the silver bands onto each other's hands, their fingers trembling. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." Williams leaned forward, but paused just long enough for Evelyn to whisper, "Don't you dare cry before the kiss." He laughed and kissed her gently. The guests erupted in applause. The twins ran up and wrapped around their legs, nearly toppling Evelyn over. Williams swept both children up into his arms. Evelyn held on to all three of them, laughing breathlessly. In that moment, under the spring sunlight, they weren't a story of heartbreak anymore. They were a family, a real, whole, chosen family. And the world felt brand new. The morning after the wedding felt like a soft exhale from the universe. Sunlight broke across the estate in warm streaks, shimmering over the dew-damp lawn, and catching the edges of the flowers still scattered from yesterday's ceremony. It was peaceful in a way that felt almost sacred. Inside the main house, laughter floated through the hallway, small, bright, unmistakably joyful. Sean and Maureen were already awake, still wearing their tiny formal shoes because they refused to take them off the night before. When Williams walked into the living room, he found them twirling around the carpet like they were still at the reception. "Papa," Maureen shouted, wobbling in a slow spin. "We're practicing the dance from last night. We forgot some moves," Sean added solemnly. "We have to fix them." Williams ruffled their hair. "You two don't need fixing. You danced better than I did." "No one danced better than Mama," Maureen declared. At that exact moment, Evelyn stepped into the room, wrapped in one of William's sweatshirts, curls tied up in a loose bun. She looked peaceful and comfortable in a way he hadn't seen her look in years. "What about Mama?" she asked with a smile. "You're the best dancer ever," Maureen insisted. Evelyn placed her hand over her heart. Then that means we're starting our morning on a wonderful note. William stepped closer, sliding an arm around her waist. Ready for part 1 of our honeymoon? She arched an eyebrow. Part 1? He grinned. I've planned something simple, something for all 4 of us. Sean perked up. Are we going to a beach? A rocket ship? A candy factory? Not quite, Williams chuckled. Go pack your favorite toys. We're driving out for a weekend. The twins bolted upstairs like a pair of rockets. Evelyn looked up at him in surprise. A weekend? He nodded. Just us. Just time. No schedules, no pressure. A soft smile tugged at her lips. That actually sounds perfect. They drove for an hour out of the city, the view shifting from tall glass buildings to wide, quiet roads lined with trees. Eventually, the landscape opened into rolling hills and calm water glistening beneath the late morning sun. At the edge of the lake sat a modest wooden house, not grand like the estate but cozy, with a porch that overlooked the rippling water and a small dock stretching toward the center. The moment the car came to a stop, the twins pressed their faces against the windows. Is this ours? Sean whispered in awe. For the weekend, Williams confirmed. The twins burst out of the car before either adult could unbuckle. Maureen ran down the wooden steps, turning in a quick circle. It smells like trees and pancakes. That doesn't even make sense, Sean muttered, but he followed close behind. Evelyn stepped out and inhaled deeply. The air felt cleaner here, untouched and gentle. She felt her shoulders relax instantly. This place, she whispered. Roland used to bring me here when I was little, Williams said quietly. It was the one place where he'd stop working and just breathe. He paused, looking toward the lake. I thought maybe it could mean something new for us. Evelyn linked her fingers through his. It already does. The first afternoon at the lake unfolded softly. No schedules, no deadlines, no buzzing phones. Inside the kitchen, Sean sat on the counter, their agreed-upon special lake house rule, helping Evelyn slice fruit. Don't cut your finger, Sean warned with the seriousness of a tiny professor. I won't, she promised. But thank you for the reminder. On the other side of the room, Maureen sat on Williams's shoulders, holding a wooden spoon like a conductor. You stir, Papa, she ordered. Fast. No, slow. No, fast again. Williams laughed helplessly as he followed her unpredictable instructions. Evelyn couldn't stop smiling. The sound of their laughter filled the cabin like warm light. After lunch, they walked down to the dock. The water shimmered, tiny waves brushing against the wood. The twins dipped their feet in, squealing at the cold. Papa, it tickles. Maureen squealed. Sean lay flat on his stomach, peering into the water. I'm looking for fish. Mama, do fish have families? Of course they do, she replied gently. Sean nodded thoughtfully. Good. Families shouldn't be alone. Evelyn's breath hitched quietly. Williams heard it. He placed a hand on the small of her back, grounding her, warm and sure. Later, he led them to a small rowboat tied to the dock. A boat ride? Evelyn asked. A calm one, he assured. They climbed in, the twins between them. Williams rowed slowly, guiding them across the lake. The afternoon sun cast soft reflections on the water. For a moment, silence settled, not uncomfortable, but full. Sean leaned against Evelyn's side. Maureen rested her head on Williams's arm. This gentle, everyday closeness felt more powerful than any grand gesture. That evening, after the twins fell asleep in the loft with their drawings scattered around them, Williams lit a small fire outside. The crackling glow reflected off the water as dusk turned into night. Evelyn stepped out wrapped in a blanket. He opened his arm, and she fit into the space without hesitation. For a long while they sat quietly, watching the fire. Finally, Williams spoke. I used to think healing required dramatic moments, big turning points. He glanced at her. But this weekend, it feels like this is what healing actually looks like. Slow, she asked softly. Slow, he agreed. Real, honest, not perfect, just ours. She looked over at him, seeing a calm she'd never seen in him before. His edges were softer, his guard lowered. What about you? He asked gently. Do you feel safe? Truly? She hesitated. Not because she doubted, but because the truth felt vulnerable. Yes, she whispered. For the first time in a long time, I feel safe. I don't feel like I'm waiting for the ground to shake under me. He brushed a thumb across her hand. I won't let you fall again." "I know," she said, surprising herself. "I actually believe you now." He exhaled shakily, relieved, humbled. Fireflies appeared across the grass, glowing softly in the dark. They drifted around them, small sparks of light rising and fading. Evelyn rested her head on his chest. "You know what I love most about this weekend?" She murmured. "What?" "That nothing about it feels grand. It just feels right." William smiled into her hair. "That's exactly what I wanted." They sat there long into the night, firelight flickering, water humming calmly behind them, and two hearts finally resting after years of carrying weight alone. Before going inside, William stopped her gently. "Evelyn." She turned. For a moment he looked at her in a way that made time feel slow, not with urgency, but gratitude. "We made it," he whispered. She cupped his face softly. "Yes," she said. "We did." Then the man who once feared commitment kissed his wife beneath a sky glittering with fireflies. Not a grand gesture, not a dramatic moment, just love. Ordinary, steady, magic. Exactly the kind of magic their family had spent years searching for. Years passed gently after their quiet honeymoon at the lake, each season, etching new memories into the life Williams and Evelyn built together. What once felt fragile and uncertain had become something grounded, not free from challenge, but strengthened by every shared step. In their home, mornings began with the steady rhythm of family life. The twins grew taller, their legs stretching long and thin as they sprinted through the hallways like they owned every inch of the house. And in a way, they did. Their laughter echoed against the walls like music, filling spaces that had once been too quiet for comfort. Sean became curious and analytical, the kind of child who asked questions no adult could easily answer. He would follow Williams around with notebooks and pencils, scribbling diagrams that made him look like a miniature engineer. Williams, amused, coached him through small science projects using safe, kid-friendly tools. In those moments, he saw the little boy he once was, dreaming, questioning, searching for connection, and he vowed never to let his own son feel the loneliness he once carried. Maureen grew into a thoughtful, artistic soul. She spent afternoons painting beside Evelyn, practicing strokes she observed with a surprising level of focus. Sometimes she would tug on Williams's sleeve and ask, "Papa, do you want to draw with us?" He always said yes, even if his drawings still resembled awkward blobs. She giggled every time he tried, wrapping her tiny arms around him and declaring it perfect. Family routine settled naturally, like water finding its way to the lowest point. Sundays became their sacred day. They'd walk to the nearby park after breakfast, the twins feeding ducks, while Williams and Evelyn sat on a bench, hands intertwined. At times, Evelyn would lean her head on his shoulder, and he'd tilt, his cheek against her hair, grateful for these small pieces of peace. Evelyn continued teaching art classes at the community center Naomi supervised. Her students adored her, and the studio hummed every afternoon with creativity and color. Williams donated funds quietly but consistently, strengthening programs for children who needed an outlet. Parents in the neighborhood often thanked him, and though he didn't do it for recognition, those conversations softened pieces of his heart he once believed were unreachable. Even Williams's corporate world changed. He shifted priorities at the company, ensuring employees had time for their families. He arranged community days where his staff joined Evelyn's students for collaborative art projects. The growing bond between both worlds, his structured corporate team and her free-flowing community, made something unexpectedly beautiful. Even Carla commented one day, "You're turning this company into something warmer than most CEOs dare to dream." Williams only smiled in reply. His life had changed because of the two children who ran into his office with juice boxes, because of the woman who held her own pain with grace, because of the promise he made to himself to never run again. In the evenings, Evelyn and William shared quiet conversations after putting the twins to bed. Sometimes they talked about the future, schools, vacations, things they wanted to show the children. Other nights, they simply sat together, reflecting on how far they'd come. No grand speeches, no dramatic declarations, just a steady, deepening companionship. One warm evening, as twilight settled across their yard, Sean and Maureen chased butterflies while Williams grilled on the patio. Evelyn stepped outside holding 2 glasses of lemonade. "Look at them," she whispered, watching their children run in circles, hair bouncing, laughter carrying on the breeze. "They've grown so much," Williams said softly. "Every time I blink they're taller." Evelyn handed him a glass. "You've grown too." He chuckled. "I hope so. I spent too many years standing still." She leaned against him. "Not anymore." Fireflies began to flicker across the lawn, their tiny lights floating like tiny dancers in the dusk. The twins froze in fascination. "Papa," Maureen shouted. "They're back. You said they'd return in the summer." Sean added. Williams knelt beside them. "They always do, just like the good things we think we've lost." Evelyn's heart tightened at the truth in his voice. As the fireflies swirled around them, Evelyn remembered the early days of raising the twins alone. The quiet nights, the uncertainty, the exhaustion that pressed like a weight on her shoulders. She remembered the fear of facing Williams again, wondering whether her heart could survive another fracture. She remembered the moment he showed up at the cafe, the way his eyes softened when he looked at the children, and the steady way he rebuilt trust brick by brick. Love had not erased their pain. It had transformed it. It had taught them patience, humility, and the courage to forgive. It had taught them that second chances weren't gifts, they were commitments. Weeks later, at the community center's annual showcase, Evelyn unveiled a final painting, a large canvas depicting a family of 4 standing beneath an oak tree. The tree's branches reached wide, its leaves full and bright. 4 silhouettes stood hand in hand beneath it, their faces lifted toward the light. Sean and Maureen whispered excitedly, trying to guess which figure was them. Naomi cried quietly in the front row. Williams held her hand, honoring the grandmother who had carried so much for them. When Evelyn finished presenting, Williams walked up beside her and spoke softly so only she could hear. "That tree looks familiar." She smiled. "It should. We planted it with our choices." He wrapped an arm around her waist. "And I want to keep choosing you, every day." She leaned into him, her voice steady. "Then we'll be all right." Later that night, as they walked home with the twins asleep on their shoulders, Evelyn looked up at the evening sky. Stars dotted the darkness, the same way fireflies had dotted their yard days before. She whispered, "We made it." William squeezed her hand gently. "We did," and they both knew that what they built, slow, imperfect, and honest, would last. Because forgiveness is strength. Family is chosen and rebuilt. And love, when nurtured, always grants a second chance. The story of their heartbreak had become a story of healing. The story of their separation had become a story of unity. And the story of 2 people who once walked away from each other had become a story of what happens when you walk back, with humility, with courage, and with love that refuses to quit. Every sunrise afterward reminded them they weren't just a family formed by circumstance. They were a family formed by choice, and that was far more powerful